this episode of An Engineer's Journey, I interview Dustin Worch, a mechanical engineer that went to the University of California, Santa Barbara. Hello, my name is Connor Dixon. I'm here with Dustin Worch, a mechanical engineer that has been an engineer for 15 years now and has gone to UCSB. Dustin, how was your experiences at UCSB in the college and engineering there, and your experiences at college and your strengths and weaknesses with college life at UCSB?
Um, the college itself is great. I mean, the campus is beautiful. It's hard to beat when you're right on the beach like that. Um, as far as engineering goes, UCSB has a great engineering school. I mean, things you want to look for is like the differences in curriculum and stuff. They have a wide variety of engineering courses, along with supporting and complementary courses. But yeah, going to school there, that everything's kind of located in one area too. So all of the engineering is in a certain portion of the
Hmm.
campus. So it makes things easy as well. A lot of the professors are more than helpful, always available when you need to ask questions or want to dive deeper into other subjects and stuff. But yeah, the college experience was really good. And I mean, one thing I would say to remember is discipline. Engineering is a lot of the courses for engineering are a lot more difficult than some other majors.
Hmm.
So while you're doing homework, some other people are not and having fun. So that discipline right there is a key thing to try and hold on to, as well as the motivation. I know that when I would do a couple math problems and stuff, one problem could take you a half hour or longer, right? But trying to
Hmm.
solve that problem versus another major where they might do a worksheet that takes them 15 minutes and they're done. So that motivation to keep on going, knowing that what you're learning is going to impact and help you essentially for the rest of your life. So, but yeah, overall, engineering at UCSB was fantastic.
And what inspired you to choose not only UCSB as your college that you went to, but become an engineer in the first place? Was there a specific moment in your life that you remember that it was like, oh, I want to follow this path and go to this school, and this is what I want to do in my life?
Yeah, so as far as following the path, my older sibling, I have three older siblings, but the one that's closest to me in age was the first to get his engineering degree. My other two siblings, one's in law and the other one's in pharmaceuticals. But I saw kind of the path that he was going down and the availability for jobs as well. So that was kind of my number one thing is seeing him get into all of that, what
Hmm.
he was learning, the type of jobs that he was getting. So that was a definitely part of the inspiration. And another thing was the variability of jobs that you can get. So me specifically, I wanted to get into mechanical engineering because it is probably the most diverse.
Hmm.
Where a lot of different companies are always looking for an engineer, specifically mechanical. You can do a lot of different things. It's a good foundation to have. I mean, every engineering discipline goes through kind of some of that mechanical uh, curriculum, but for me, it was so I can jump into aerospace if I want to, or some other type of automotive type of thing. So definitely, if you're interested in certain things like aerospace engineering is great. If you know that's what you want to do. But if you're more kind of in the open of still deciding on where to go, mechanical is a great one to get just to get that solid foundation and then kind of pivot from there.
Thank you. So um what does a day in a life look like at your current job right now as an engineer, and like what software do you use, and what is the engineering part of your job look like currently?
So, for my degree, I kind of did an emphasis in 3D CAD design. So A lot of my daily life is opening up SolidWorks and CATIA. Another thing that I've used is Pro Engineer. Um, but CATIA and SolidWorks tend to be the software that I use daily for designing parts and assemblies for the customer. Along with that, it kind of leads into, I think, when you get into the job field, being an engineer and doing design and some other tasks first helps you to become kind of like a project engineer. Where I'm at right now is I lead projects, where I have the foundation of design and other aspects, but in being a project engineer now, I know what it takes to design certain things. So as far as
Hmm.
making a schedule for a project, it's a lot easier because I understand that
Hmm.
what goes into that. But being a project engineer, so my life is like I can do design during the day, but I also have meetings to, work on schedules, make sure the team is on schedule for the project, go through kind of presentations and review design reviews with them, overlooking drawing. So all of those things are sprinkled in throughout the day, along with numerous meetings when you're kind of leading the project.
So, what was your biggest challenges that you have faced in any of the jobs you've been a part of or during your time at UCSB, and how did you solve those problems um, throughout your engineering career?
I would say one that sticks out through one of my early experiences in engineering was with a customer that was through the customer wanted to make a renewable energy source, right? And they had previous designs that they had gone through and looked at. When we looked at it and analyzed and reviewed the information, it was not going to output what the customer thought it would be. And the customer was adamant that no, this is what it's going to be. And it was kind of, it was difficult because we disagreed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we had to go through all of the numbers, present that to the customer and say, this is what we think we can get. And just as long as you go through it maturely and discuss and have evidence of why, you know, our outcome was going to be what it was, then the customer understood. It's like, yeah, okay, then this is good enough. We can agree on this and move forward. But yeah, that's the best way. Just as long as you communicate everything and provide all the evidence you have. The disagreements, I mean, nothing was ever heated or anything like that, but it was discouraging to hear that the customer kept saying that, this output was going to be what it was. And like, no, that's not reality.
Yeah, I just talked to Andrew Basula the other day and he said the same thing that the hardest part of engineering wasn't the math or figuring out how to design stuff. It was the communicating with other people and figuring out a way to solve problems with a group of people that don't agree entirely.
Yep. Customers and people are usually the hardest hurdle.
All right, thank you. So, what advice would you give to a high schooler trying to go into college and become an engineer, or someone in college, a college in engineering, trying to find a job? What's your biggest advice that you'd give to someone?
Again, like I mentioned in the beginning, having that discipline and keeping your motivation. Because, for example, all the classes that I was taking in Santa Barbara, each class was worth 3 units. But the amount of work in that class compared
Mhm.
to some other majors that classes were 4 units, and you'd have, the time it takes per class is definitely a lot more in engineering. So
Mhm.
again, it's time management, it's motivation and discipline. Those are the best three things you can kind of try and harness in order to get into engineering. And then once that happens, I mean, engineering's so great because most jobs, whether it's not even in the field of engineering, want engineers because they know that the rigorous coursework you have to go through. If you get
Mhm.
through that, they want somebody like that on the team, right?
Mhm. So, um, in your college life, if you had to change anything from how you worked in college, what college you went to, would there be anything that you change, or do you like the path and how everything played out for you?
I definitely like the path that I was on, but something I would stress a little more is to try and filter out the all that other outside noise. Like make
Mhm,
sure that you are constantly surrounded by people. Like, I mean, a lot of times everybody in engineering kind of hangs out because we're all going through the same thing, right?
mhm.
Um, but there are distractions, obviously, at college. And um, that would be the only thing slightly different is like looking back on it now, it's like, well, maybe I should have done a couple things differently in these classes. But overall, I mean, as long as you stick to it, you're going to be good.
All right, thanks. So in your current job, how is it changing and advancing with advancements in new computer technology? And do you use AI programs to help you? And how is that changing your job and your career going forward in engineering?
Yeah, a lot of the newer stuff, especially AI, is very interesting. I think right now, for solving complex problems, it will help companies, right? Instead
Mhm,
of having the manpower to try and figure out what that solution is, if it's like mathematics or solving specific mathematical equations, that can aid in kind of bypassing that. So that way you can get focused on, okay, now we can plan with all of this information that we have. I think AI is going to help quite a bit, um, especially in production as well. So
mhm,
AI and robotics paired together will help streamline a lot of the industrialization processes. Uh,
mhm.
I know that's coming into a lot of different companies right now. Um, but yeah, that I think AI is probably going to be a net benefit for a majority of companies, just so you know there's less lag in project schedules and stuff. It'd be able to work a lot harder and quicker.
So um, you said that you got your spark for engineering from your brother going into engineering, seeing well, how many different paths he could go on. If you weren't an engineer, what do you think you would want to do as your career job?
It's very interesting because it's probably going to change throughout your entire life. You're going to get into
Hmm.
something and be like, wow, I wish I would have learned more about this.
Hmm.
If I wasn't an engineer, I still like building things. So I might go into woodworking or some sort of ceramics. That's something I'm really interested in right now, along with cooking, actually.
Mm.
Something that I figured out going to college and having to cook for yourself. And like, it's also, I mean, it's obviously not mathematical or anything,
Hmm.
but there's problems that you can have on creating like different meals, or you basically can put your own touch to it.
Hmm.
So it would probably be one of those two, maybe a chef or ceramics and woodworking. But I do like fundamentally down, I do like problem solving, and that's essentially what engineering is. It's just here's a problem, how do you solve it?
Hmm.
You're if you're into that type of thing, an engineering route is a great way to go.
So do you have a ceramics and woodworking set up at your house currently that you do this as a hobby?
I don't. I actually am signing up for a ceramics class, and then the woodworking. I've just been doing stuff in the garage at my house, just tinkering around with things. But
Is
I
that
would
is
like to
that
take.
design behind you one of your own designs?
No, that's actually Andrew Pasula's,
Uh,
who you
yes.
spoke to.
Yeah.
Um, that's also kind of inspiring to see him go off and start making art. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
that I think that's a part of every engineer as well, having a little bit of that artistic background. Because, like I
Hmm.
said, going into woodworking and ceramics, building things that you want to build yourself,
Hmm.
and that actually kind of leads into I want to get a 3D printer as well because
Mm.
that has
Hmm.
kind of revolutionized a lot of engineering as well, right?
Hmm.
Being able to create things that you couldn't manufacture 20 years ago.
Yeah. I know you work at home now. Have you always worked at home, and if you haven't, how has it changed engineering for you? And is it easier for you? Is it more difficult for you? What's your experiences with that?
I have not always worked from home. I would say the first, what is it, 7 or 8 years of my career, I was in office, which I loved. And especially for doing production, it is pretty important to be on there.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's crucial for design engineers in the beginning to be in the office near production so you can see kind of the products that you're designing. A lot of times, fresh out of college, designers will start making something in the 3D software and then not realizing, no, this angle of something it can't be manufactured. So learning that type of stuff in the office is really crucial. But also, it depends on what type of engineer you are. If you're doing like computer software and stuff, that doesn't necessarily need to be in office for certain things. For the last half of my career, I've been working from home and remotely, and I really enjoy that because I think it raises the quality of life.
Hmm.
You don't have commute times, you don't
Yeah.
have added expenses like gas. If companies are completely virtual, they're not paying for business, they're not renting out, a
Hmm.
building, they're not paying for all of the expenses like electrical and all of that. So it kind of depends. For me personally, though, I enjoy the remote work and then occasionally going into the office when needed, especially like I said for production. But
Hmm.
um,
So I saw that one of your jobs was working with NASA's SLS. Could you talk to me a little bit about that and how
yeah,
that
so
went?
so that company was really interesting because that company basically was a glorified like plumbing company. They were specialized in plumbing, so a lot of ducting and stuff. And that project was actually the ducting for the fuel lines of that.
Mm,
So it's really interesting when you start looking at companies when you're getting out of college. You're like, oh wow, this company is they're proficient in ducting. Like, what is that going to do? But
hmm.
that can apply to anything as did that. It ended up
Hmm.
I ended up getting to work on a rocket. It wasn't
Yeah.
all the interior items, but I was able to design the plumbing for all of that, all the fuel for it to get pumped from kind of the boosters to the engines and stuff. So it was definitely a cool experience to see what that design was like.
So did the rocket they were working on go to space, and what mission was it a part of?
I actually haven't kept up with the Boeing SLS. I've been more focused on SpaceX because that was
Mm,
another at a previous company I worked on metallic parts that go into the Falcon 9.
hmm.
Um, so I have had parts go into space.
Hmm.
I know Boeing SLS was scheduled to have a couple launches actually by this year. Um, but again, I haven't followed them as closely as SpaceX because I was a little more involved in the SpaceX realm. But it is cool to know like that's one thing about engineering as well. If you get into the 3D and the 2D design, is that if you're building something like in aerospace, your name is on that drawing.
Hmm.
So 20 years from now, somebody can look at it and be like, wow, who designed this or who made this? And they'll see your name. It's like, it's really cool to know that your name is on something that went up to space or is
Yeah.
flying over us right now. That's another cool thing about engineering.
All right. Thank you, Dustin. That'll be all for me. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And that will be the episode. If you like this episode of An Engineer's Journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment if I should do season 2, and comment any additional questions you'd like me to ask. That'll be all. Bye bye.